Today we're going to do something a little bit different because I don't think I've ever done a tier list before on the channel. So we're going to try and make a tier list of all the different classes based on which one is best when it comes to solo PvP. And this is something that I'm very passionate about in the game because I usually spend 90% of my time either doing World PvP or Battlegrounds. And Battlegrounds, you know, you often get into 1v1 situations, you don't always have a healer on you, so it's just always kind of nice to be able to survive on your own and have the correct utility in order to actually stay alive during those fights. So solo PvP is something that I do mainly inside this game. And I thought, why not try and go over what my experience is when it comes to all the different classes when it comes to solo PvP. So of course, there's going to be a couple of important things to mention here at the start, which is I will not be taking into consideration the meta at the moment because the meta is constantly changing, meaning that the next patch we might have some specific class that is overpowered, and then all of a sudden the next patch it's going to be something different. What we're doing here is more about the core foundation of how the class is built up. What kind of utility do they have? What kind of, class is it? Does it have self-healing? Does it have specific things that we're looking for when it comes to solo PvP that would make this class good for solo PvP in whatever patch? So if you're looking for a new main going into the World Within, then we will have a tier list here for solo PvPers like me who just like to do PvP but not be dependent on a healer. So if Demon Hunter is overpowered at the moment, I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be S+ tier, because it's Demon Hunter. We're going to take all these classes into consideration, looking from a point of view that they're all balanced. I know they're never going to be, but it's just kind of important to look at this as a permanent sort of thing. So if you're looking for a new main going into the World Within, you should not pick based on the meta, because the meta changes constantly, which means you're going to be changing main constantly. So of course, killing something really fast is one thing because a class has high damage, but another thing is what can they do? How is the class? Another thing to mention here is that we will also be getting hero talents in the next expansion, which is not really going to change that much on the tier list here, because really the only thing it's going to affect is that we will have more self-healing and more self-sustain in some classes. But when it comes to the damage, like I said, that's not really what we're interested in here. Things can always be balanced out when it comes to damage. Same thing goes for self-healing, by the way, in the hero talents. Again, it really doesn't have an effect on when it comes to the core class gameplay, which, like I said, is what we're looking for here. And lastly, some people might be thinking, well, Daniel, what kind of experience do you have cheering all the different classes in the game? I am a fanatically altaholic. So I played all the classes to max level in multiple expansions because they were going to be my new main, and I played them for a period of time, and then I swapped to a new class, and then I just kept rotating all the way through all the different classes. I know how all the classes they function. Do I have all the classes at max level this expansion? No, because I did actually manage to somewhat sustain myself from not, becoming an alcoholic as badly in this expansion. It was more about me just rotating through specific classes. Like I have 3-4 different hunters. I have 3 different druids, so it's not like rotating through all the different classes in this expansion yet. But I do know how the classes work and the reworks. So let's go ahead and take a look at all of these classes. As you can see, I'm logged into the game because I'm ready to actually demonstrate what makes some of these classes good or bad for World PvP. But I also have a tier list maker here, so we can actually place them. The first thing I would like to do is go from plate and then work my way downwards, because this will make sense once we start doing it. You're going to notice a theme here when it comes to classes. The first one we have on the list here is going to be Death Knight. Death Knight is a class that is infamously known for being very slow, but I do want to point one thing out when it comes to the hero talents in the World Within, which is that as a Death Knight, you can spec into Riders of the Apocalypse, which gives you the ability to be permanently on a horse, even during combat in the open world. This is not something that is going to be affected inside Battlegrounds, from my understanding. There will be a hero talent that is kind of like the, you can like pick 2 different kinds, and then you can pick, permanent mounted in open world, or you can have kind of like the Divine Steed effect from Paladins, right? So Death Knight do have that one effect. So if you're looking for world PvP, Death Knight's going to be absolutely insane when it comes to mobility. Like, they're just permanently going to have Divine Steed up constantly, like 24/7. I'm trying to really, you know, be decisive about this, because I don't just want to put Death Knight up here because it has mobility now. There's a lot more that goes into a class than just mobility. For example, utility, self-healing, all sorts of things. I do think I'm going to be placing Death Knight as in high A, because if it had not gotten that World PvP utility, I would have probably placed it down at like D tier. Like, that would be like the worst class of World PvP in the game at all. Again, I'm not talking about damage wise, I'm talking about pure utility and what can it do. I've mained Death Knight for many years. It is the first class I got into. It's the only one I have the Mage Tower appearance on from back in Legion. Like, Death Knight is my thing. And I hate to put it down in D tier. If we were thinking about this from a Battleground point of view, when you don't have the permanent Divine Steed effects on you, where you can be constantly mounted and constantly just running around at full speed, it would be D tier. So if you're thinking about Battlegrounds, Death Knight goes down here, in my opinion. You could say it could move up to C tier, maybe, like a low C tier, because it does have some things like you can grab enemies and pull them to you, which can lead to some pretty awesome moments in Battlegrounds when you do have, for example, a cart that needs to be, you know, you have to be within the circle. So Death Knight, they have the ability to grab people and pull them out from that and then slow them, so you can actually, like, retake the minecarts. So Death Knight is something that is usable. Like, I would say D tier is probably completely useless. Like, that is probably what D tier means. So it's probably shouldn't go in D tier, it should go in C tier. Again, I should probably have two versions of Death Knight inside this tier list. So I can put one down here for Battlegrounds and then one up inside A tier for World PvP, because that is in reality how it's going to be. Again, Death Knight doesn't have any sort of knockbacks. It doesn't have a on-demand self-healing button. Like, they do have a lot of self-healing and a lot of shields when it comes to, like, during contact with an opponent. But as soon as you don't have contact, let's say you're fighting a rogue or feral druid or something, they attack you, you lose half your health, and then they re-stealth and kite away from you. There's nothing really you can do to heal up again. Like, you're just kind of like that's it. So Death Knight is not really like the best thing for World PvP content or solo PvP. Like, you kind of need to have a pocket healer against some classes like druids and rogues. Like, it's just really difficult to fight those kind of classes because it's hard to get to them. You can pull them to you, but once you have all those grabs used, then that's pretty much it. It just simply means that it doesn't quite have the fun factor when it comes to a lot of the World PvP stuff you could be doing, or solo PvP in Battlegrounds, such as knockbacks. You know, it does have stuns, like different kinds of stuns, and incapacitates. It has a range slow, which is something to consider. But besides slowing and stunning, because that's kind of like a standard that I think most classes they have, they don't really bring anything other to the table. Like, that's just kind of it. So Death Knight, I'm going to put it into C tier. I think that's a decent place to put it. Let's go ahead and take Warrior, which is the next one. Now, Warrior is probably just as useless, if not maybe even more useless than Death Knight when it comes to World PvP. A lot of people are probably going to argue against me on this one, because, oh, have you seen Warrior this patch? People will say, like, in the Emerald Dream, like, Warriors were super overpowered. Like, it was so hard to kill a Warrior when they were fully geared. Yes, but again, this is not really what we're looking for. So if you're picking a Warrior, you're going to suffer until you're fully geared, right? I can mention several classes on this list here where I would actually kill off max level characters while I was still leveling my character in Dragonflight. So I might have been like level 62 and I would kill off level 70s. So again, utility can do a lot when it comes to PvP, especially in solo PvP instances. And Warrior and Death Knight just don't really have those. There's no knockbacks. There's, like, they basically can stun. You can heroic leap as a Warrior. So if you get knocked off a cliff or something, you can not die if you wanted to. But you can't really do anything other than suck, charge in, try and kill the person, try and stun them, you know, try and just survive as long as possible until you kill them. I would probably say that Death Knight has more utility than Warrior does when it comes to World PvP. It has range slow, it has, you know, like, you can pull people in, you have more incapacitates and stuff. So I'm probably going to put Warrior below Death Knight inside the C tier. plate classes don't do well in open world PvP or solo PvP. Like I don't know, like they need other classes with them to help them in a lot of cases. In 1v1 duel situations, right? When you duel someone else, 1v1. Let's go ahead and pick the last plate class, Paladin. Now, Paladin is a little bit different. And I do mean a little bit different. Because Paladin does have an on-demand heal. And that's mainly the big difference here. Like, Paladin has a lot of utility for not dying, which is a big difference between what Warrior and Death Knight has. Because if a Feral Druid goes up to a Warrior or Death Knight, they get them to half health, then they kite away. Paladin can heal themselves up again. And I know Warrior has the, what is it called? Something wind something, you know, where they can heal up, what is it, 2% every second while they are not in combat after a certain amount of time. So second win, I think it's called. So they do have a heal, but it's not a, I can use this, right? They have to not be in combat for a certain amount of time. So it's just one of those things where, like, Paladin just has that button they can use, and they have a lot of self-healing. They can, in fights, just spam heal themselves. If the person cuts away from them, they can heal themselves up again. But besides that, they have the same utility. They have the same abilities as these other two classes here. So, like, there's a lot of stuff lacking from Paladin. So if you like a plate class and you want to have a two-handed sword on you, if that's your thing, if you're not really into the staff kind of fighter in the game here, Paladin will be a B tier. Because it does have that self-healing. It is a really, really good solo class, especially in PvE content. But again, this is a PvP tier list. So Paladins are super good, but it's the utility, it's all that extra stuff, like all the topping. It's like, it's a cake, but it doesn't have any frosting on it. It doesn't have anything else on it. It's just like, it's a cake and it can be eaten, right? But all the stuff that makes it extra delicious and extra fun in World PvP or Battlegrounds, it doesn't really have. So it goes into B tier. The next one we're going to look at is going to be the male classes. And let's go ahead and start off with Shaman. I think Shaman is a good place to start. Shaman has a knockback. It actually has 2 knockbacks. Depending on the race that you also pick, it might even have 3 knockbacks. Static Field Totem is incredible in World PvP and Battlegrounds. Like, so many times, I've gone into, what is it called? Is it the Battleground where you have to, like, meet in the center for the flag? And there's, like, you know, Shamans always knock people over the edge at the side. Like, not just is Shaman good for knocking people over the side, but I often just, like, charge into the center. I place a root totem on the enemy side to root the entire team. And then after the root totem wears off, I'll place a static field totem and people still can't move. And it's just hilarious to watch the other team, like the entire team, being stuck on the other side while our team grabs the flag. So a Shaman can really do a lot of things here in Battlegrounds to really turn the tide, like, super early on in your favor. So Shaman is one of those type of classes. It just has so much different utility. It has a range slow, it has knockbacks, it has roots, it has, you know, you can hex people. It just has all the utility you might want to have in a World PvP or Battleground scenario if it were to go toe-to-go against someone in a 1v1 situation. They also have self-healing. Like, they have so many different things. They have mobility. They have a, they have this new ability we got. I don't know if it's a new ability, but we have an ability in Dragonflight where you can kind of like disengage from a hunter, but like the other way. So, like, they can do stuff against fall damage as well. So they have a bunch of things when it comes to utility, World PvP. The only thing they're lacking is they do not have a targeted route. And you might be thinking, what am I talking about? Why do we need to have a targeted route? I just said you could root people, right? Well, that's putting something on the ground. And then when people run into that area, it roots them. So why is that important? Well, in World PvP, with Dragonflying, or Skyriding, as it's called now, if someone is Skyriding on their mounts, and you root them mid-air, they will stop, they're going to fall down to the ground, and they're going to take fall damage. Like the full amount of fall damage you would take from that distance. I have so often, with other classes in the game, kill players off in World PvP by luring them into using dragon riding, follow me into the air. I would disengage myself, root them, and do something to prevent fall damage when I hit the ground, and they would just like under a mount fall down and die. So it's an incredible utility to have a targeted root in in open world situations. So a targeted root is something that is super fun in World PvP. I think when it comes to different specs inside Shaman, Elemental Shaman is probably the preferred one because it does have ranged, it has, I don't know, just a lot better utility when it comes to World PvP because they can spam Frostbolt or Frost Shock in order to slow people. They don't have to wait for a cooldown. So, you know, playing as an Elemental Shaman is definitely, I think, the better option when it comes to solo PvP. Especially because you'll be using like static field totem and root totems and stuff to like keep people away from you. So like that's to like gain distance. So where do we put Shaman at? I think I'm going to be placing it in S tier because it just has everything when it comes to this game. Like if you want a solo PvP, Shaman is the class for you. Like it's just so good. I do want to point out though that I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Shaman because the transmog when it comes to the weapons, like especially I mentioned Elemental Shaman, having a shield is probably one of my least favorite things to have in the game. So Elemental Shaman, if I had to like personal, you know, biased opinion, I would probably place it down in A tier because of transmog, but looking at pure gameplay, it would go into S tier, like no doubt about it. The next class we're going to talk about is going to be Evoker, the new class of the expansion. Evoker is a kind of, let me put it this way, when Dragonflight started, I did not have a class in the game that I thought was perfect for me personally. I was looking for something, like I said, that had all this utility of shamans, but had the transmog to go with it because I like two-handed swords. Evoker has all of that. So Evoker basically has everything except the targeted root, just like Shaman doesn't have. So you have a root, but it's an AoE on the ground. You have a stun. You have sleepwalk, which is instead of hex. You have a lot of mobility. You have a lot of slows. You have a way to not take fall damage simply by double jumping because they have that built into their race. So there's a lot of things here when it comes to Evoker that just simply work. Now, there is a lot of people that are very complainy when it comes to Evoker's self-healing and staying alive. Evoker has one weakness, which is that if you get in a stun, then you can't do anything about it except trinket it. So if you're in PvP, someone stuns you, you have to use your gladiator trinket. That is the one weakness Evoker has. I personally love the defensives because it has a huge amount of self-healing. When you use Fire Breath on people, it will charge up something called Overheat. What is it called? It's called something. It's a buff that you get, which allows you to instantly press Living Flame on yourself or on enemies. You know, you can use Living Flame instantly, which procs very often when you use Fire Breath. So having that instant, constant healing that just like stacks up twice that you can just spend is just super handy as an Evoker, and their mobility is out of this world. Like using hover as part of your combat mechanic is just incredible in World PvP, and you'll see a lot of people get very frustrated because while you're hovering and kiting, using Disintegrate. I think that is what it's called, right? So when you, I don't know, I can't remember. I've played Evoker since the beginning of this expansion. So when you disintegrate and you hit them and you slow them at the same time while you're hovering around them, like they can't get to you, it's just super satisfying, at least fighting against melee fighters. So Evoker is a tad above Shaman, in my opinion. Like they have the same utility, but Evoker has the transmog as well. And it's new, it's flavorful, it's, I don't know, it's just, to me, a lot more fun than Shaman is. It's not S tier, keep in mind, because while I see it as being kind of almost the perfect class, and again, the keyword here on almost, it does lack some things. So I'm gonna go and place it in S tier, together with Shaman, but just half a point above Shaman. The next one I'm gonna take a look at is going to be Hunter. Now, this one is a little bit different because Hunter right now in retail is probably belonging somewhere, let's say low S tier, because Hunter has everything. And I'm talking more specifically about Survival Hunter, which is what I'm playing. But again, you know, The only thing that Survival Hunter really has that the others don't have is a targeted route, which I talked about because you can kill people with fall damage using the Tracker's Net. The other Hunter specs do not have a targeted route. So if you want to kill people in World PvP, surprisingly, it's actually Survival Hunter that is better for that particular purpose, because it has that one extra utility. But if you go into the other specs, then of course you'll be more ranged, and you can kite and you can fight at distance instead of going in close like Survival has to. But Hunter's just kind of like the perfect class, except for one thing. Their self-healing is, I don't know if there's like an F tier, but I would take it down there. And I'm not saying that Survival Hunter or just Hunter in general do not have good survivability, because they do have really good spells, but it's like one charge spells. It takes 3 minutes to get them back online again, and it's just like, if you spend your defensives, and keep in mind, you have barely any self-healing here as a Hunter. Like, you have defensives to like reduce damage taken. So you can like feign death to gain 90% reduced damage for 3 seconds, and you have Fortitude of the Bear, which is a pet talent to like make your health pool a bit bigger, which you can combine with acceleration to heal yourself. And like, you have to know a bunch of tricks as a Hunter in order to do well. Like, it's not just about, oh, I'm missing health, I'm gonna heal myself. No, you have to play smart as a Hunter. So Hunter is very high skill ceiling when it comes to playing in PvP. A lot of people are gonna meme on Hunter saying, oh, you want to play something easy, you gotta pick a Hunter. That's true in PvE, when a pet is tanking for you. If you want to do PvP as a Hunter, it's a totally different matter. Hunter is hard in PvP in retail at the moment. You have to know what you're pressing, you have to know how to use your traps. Like, if you don't use your traps, you're gonna die, because Hunter has the worst survivability in the entire game. It's literally garbage. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about how Hunter is going to be in the War Within, because Hunter has received a rework, and you can play it right now in the beta, and it's absolutely amazing. And I was actually gonna main Invoker going into the next expansion, because I just gave up on Hunter during this expansion here in Dragonflight. I was like, oh man, I just can't stand not healing myself. I just can't stand constantly having to struggle just staying alive just half decently as other classes in the game. I'm gonna play Evoker instead. Like, it's so much better. Now they reworked Hunter, and with the reworked Hunter, we have incredible survivability. I would say we're probably like the most survivable class in the entire game, because we also received pretty much every single piece of utility that you have to pick between inside the Hunter's tree. So if you want explosive trap to like knock people off ledges, or do you want to stun, like that's our choice in Dragonflight, but now in the War Within, you can have both. You can have a stun, and you can also have a knockback. Congratulations, you have everything. So like, your utility has almost doubled as a Hunter, and your survivability has almost doubled as a Hunter. Like, they just completely reworked Hunter. It's absolutely insane in the next expansion. So with that in mind, Hunter is going to be S+ tier. I do want to point out here, I am saying, oh my god, they have incredible self-healing. That is when you pick Pack Leader as a hero talent. Sentinel is more of a, you receive constant shields, and I don't think it's as good for survivability in solo PvP. Again, this is a solo PvP tier list. For that, I have tested out Pack Leader being probably the more optimal one, because you receive a lot more healing from that. But again, Hunter, just without the hero talents, just with the rework alone, is a major difference in survivability, and it's so good. So I will be maining Hunter going into the next expansion, and I'm not being biased here by saying, oh, I'm gonna main Hunter, I'm gonna put on S+ tier. It is that good. There's a reason why I decided to pick it up again after it had frustrated me for so long in Dragonflight. So if you want to play Hunter in the World Within, you're not going to be disappointed. Its survivability and solo capabilities are just like so much better now. Like, it's not, you don't feel like you need a pocket healer to constantly babysit you as you're fighting in PvP. Because that's kind of how you felt. Like, you could easily win a 1v1 as a Hunter, But what if a second person comes up to you? Oh, okay, nope, you gotta wait 2 to 3 minutes because your cooldowns are off. You know, you gotta wait. So, like the new survival hunter or just hunter in general is something that you can constantly fight with. It doesn't matter if you're doing a 1v1 and you kill the other player and you spent some of your defensives. It doesn't matter because you still have more defensives you can spend. You have more traps that you can use. So if a second person comes up to you, you can continue fighting. You don't have to take a break in between the fights, which is really important as a hunter, because I hated that, that you could do 1v1, or if it was, you know, a 3 people fighting each other situation in open world PvP, like you had to stay at the back line. Try not to get hit, because the more hits you take, the less you can survive, because you don't have any self-healing. I mean, you do, but you get what I mean, right? You're not a paladin or druid that can just constantly heal yourself up again. You have to like use your self-healing very carefully, whereas it's not as dangerous to heal yourself in the War Within. So Hunter S+ tier, it is the best. You can use sword transmogs if you want to go survival hunters, so S+ tier. I'm so glad they reworked Hunter. I've written several forum posts complaining about Hunter. I even had people helping me on those forum posts to make me just somewhat able to play Hunter without constantly dying. But it didn't feel good, but I could play it, you know. Okay, so the next one. We now have all the male classes. You'll notice that they're actually ranked pretty high when it comes to World PvP. Let's go into Leather. Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter is a class that a lot of people will praise highly for World PvP. It has a lot of mobility. It has now received a lot of self-healing after its rework. So Demon Hunter just like heals and heals and heals. It's basically like fighting a DPS and a healer at the same time. They are insane when it comes to staying alive and when it comes to movement and just like in World PvP and Battleground scenarios. If we had to just take a look at those things alone, it would probably go into a high S tier or something. Like Demon Hunter is crazy. I love the fantasy of Demon Hunter with the, you know, you're actually a demon. But it doesn't have a knockback. It does have a couple of stuns, but it doesn't have roots. It has slows, I guess, if you talent into it. Like the utility to manipulate another player and watch themselves slowly die. I'm being kind of sadistic here. Like, let's take Hunter, for example. If you're about to kill a person, they have maybe like 5% health left. You then freeze trap them, and you can stand there and you can dance, and you can be very toxic about it, and then you can maybe knock them off a cliff to like kill them, you know, to like really rub it in. Demon Hunter doesn't have that capability. It's a straightforward, I'm gonna go kill a person and deal as much damage as possible, because if I stop attacking, then I die, sort of class. So it is one of those that has self-healing from Leech. You can't just heal yourself like a paladin can. So when it comes to World PvP, I think really the thing that pulls it up in points is the mobility and the sheer self-healing. Again, that can be nerfed at some point, but it's just absolutely crazy when it comes to self-healing right now. So if you're looking for fun, because I'm also taking fun into considerations here, I would probably put Demon Hunter either as a A tier, like an high A, or low S tier. I would probably say, because utility is very important to me personally, and this is my tier list, so I can be a little bit biased here. I'm probably going to put it at A. It is better than Paladin for World PvP, obviously, because it's just so good and powerful, which again are stuff that can be nerfed. Like, this is not core gameplay stuff that we're talking about. This is, you know, Blizzard can tweak a few numbers and all of a sudden you go down here, you know. But as it is right now, the rework has been there for a long time. People have complained about Demon Hunter, saying they need to nerf them, They still haven't gotten nerfed, so Blizzard obviously thinks they are where they need to be, so let's put them in A tier for now. Okay? The next one, Druid. Druid has everything. It has all the specs in the game, which I guess doesn't really matter too much when it comes to solo PvP, since you will be probably thinking about, you know, either Boomkin or Feral Druid. But it has melee, it has ranged, both are good, especially for solo PvP. Feral is infamously known for being the best solo world PvP class in the game. They have a lot of self-healing. They have every single piece of utility. They have a targeted route that you can use. They have spammable routes if you want to do that. They have Cyclone, which is the best crowd control in the entire game. They have mobility. They have perma-stealth. It's just so freaking good when it comes to World PvP. Like, you cannot get a better class for World PvP. I'm going to go ahead and say that, you know, just purely because it has all the checks, self-healing, World PvP utility, tankiness, you know, like perma-stealth. Stealth is an important thing when it comes to World PvP and Battlegrounds. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right above Hunter. If this was a biased tier list, I would place it like this. Because Hunter has Survival Hunter, which can have a sword transmog. I see that as being a little bit better. I know Hunter has stealth too, but it's not the same thing as Druid that can be in stealth permanently, right? But if we had to be unbiased here, it's going to be like this. Druid is just the best class in the entire game when it comes to solo PvP. If you want to play something solo PvP, pick Druid. Like, that is just the choice between all the classes on the list here. They will be the best one. Like, there's just so many things you can do as a Druid. Again, it's a lot of buttons that you need to maintain, and I have played Druid pretty much every expansion since Legion. So I don't feel like the button thing is an issue because I just have everything key binded the way I want it, so I can just press them. But to a new player picking up Druid, just know that you have a learning curve when it comes to button management. You need to know when to get into Bear form, you need to know when to get into Feral form, you need to know when to get into Boomkin form. Travel form is the thing also. On top of that, each form has different spells, you know, there's just a lot of things to maintain there. But Druid, if you know how to play it, it's the best in the game, period. Let's go ahead and talk about Monk. Monk is also a very fun class to talk about because Monk is a class that has a lot of utility. It does have a knockback. If you pick it as a PvP talent, you have the Ox Kick, which is something they added in Dragonflight, I believe. So you can knock people behind you, which, by the way, and this might be something people don't know, a lot of places in the open world, let's say you go to, what's it called? The Ruby Life Shrine, right? Where you have the place where you start learning dragon flying in Dragonflight. If you try to take something like a Druid, and you try to knock people over the edge up there, because you want to troll people, right? There's an invisible wall, like a slight gap above the ground, so you cannot knock people off the edge, which is really annoying. But because you have a monk that knocks people into the air, and then behind them, it's completely different. Because that little gap above the ground that prevents people from getting knocked off the edge there doesn't work on monk. They can just knock people over. Now, there is, of course, that one little detail that some people might complain about, that if you want to knock people off ledges in World PvP as a monk, then there's a lot of travel time. So if you play as a rogue, then you can just poof over to the person, like to the monk again. If you play as a warrior, you can just heroic leap back to the monk again. But if you use the paralysis spell right after you knock them back, then they can't do anything. They're just kind of stuck there and then they fall down and die. So there's a small combo that you can use that is pretty fun. You can also chain in Ring of Peace. So if you stand on the edge and you knock them over and, oh, a warrior's going to charge in onto you again, you can actually place a Ring of Peace to knock them back off again. And they just spent their heroic leap, so they can't use it, right? So it's one of those things that are just kind of fun when it comes to World PvP as a monk. I did check out if paralysis works in the air when you want to kill people with fall damage, just like a hunter can, and a druid can, by the way. It does not. So you cannot use it on people when they're actually flying. You can use it on a person who is, what do you call it? Like, if they're sitting on the ground, AFKing, next to an edge, you can actually go ahead and paralysis them because they're not actually flying, and then you can knock them back because it doesn't break the paralysis, and that will actually cause them to fall down and take fall damage. But if they're flying, you cannot. Okay, so Monk is one of those type of things that it has a lot of utility, like it has a lot of fun utility that other classes don't have, like Ring of Peace. Just know that it doesn't have like the stuff that you usually see in other classes, like rooting people midair. Like, they don't have that. Static Field Totem is also really unique. Like Monk is kind of like the opposite of that. Like they have Ring of Peace that pushes people away instead, but you can still create a wall that people can't get past. So in Battlegrounds, that's super fun as well. So Monk is one of those type of classes that I just personally think it's like one of the higher fun tiers in the game. So if I had to place Monk somewhere, again, keep in mind they have self-healing, they have a crap ton of mobility, they have so many fun utility things like Ring of Peace, Paralysis, they can stun, they can do so many things there. I'm gonna go ahead and put it right below Shaman, because Monk, it does lack one thing, which is a range spec that these two do not have. And a range spec is always something that, at least in World PvP, I've noticed is just kind of like really good, because if you have a lot of mobility classes that can jump off mountains and disengage and save themselves from fall damage, but you cannot do that because monks don't have an ability like that, then you will struggle a little bit, because in World PvP, in my opinion, ranged classes always fare better. So even semi-ranged classes like Survival Hunter will do a lot better because you have so many things you can use. Like you can harpoon yourself to the enemy, you can disengage before hitting the ground. Like you can very easily keep up with people as a Survival Hunter. Whereas a monk, if you have environment taken into considerations, they don't fare as well. So it's the same weakness, by the way, they have in Battlegrounds, because there's a lot of line of sighting going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Battlegrounds. They have the same weaknesses there. So they have fun utility, but it's kind of like we had this list we're looking at. Like, can they do this? And then, oh, if they can, then we place them high on this tier list. Monk kind of has like a little bit of that, like half of that. But they also have half of something else that other classes don't have that I'm not really including into what we're looking for here. So Monk goes into a low S tier, in my opinion. The next one we're going to look at is going to be our Rogue. Now, Rogue is interesting because most people are going to say, oh my god, Rogue is like the best thing ever in this game if you want a solo PvP. You should put it up here. It's S+ tier. No. Because we're not looking at just what can kill things the fastest, because if we're looking at just that, then Rogue would go up here, because it can kill things really fast, especially in 1v1 situations. No, if you're looking at this from they need to have utility, they need to have a knockback, they need to have, just other things than just stunning and killing things. Rogue is not going to be that high on this list here. They do have permastealth, which is a super good thing, and you can always get back inside like out of combat as a rogue if you maintain your cooldowns correctly. So it is one of those things that if you play correctly, you're probably never going to lose any sort of fight. But I'm looking for fun sustainability going into the next expansion. Like, will you think this is fun in 2 patches from now? Because rogue is a very specific thing. It has a very specific playstyle. And unless you love out of this world that particular playstyle, you're not gonna enjoy Rogue. Like, it might be a fun little thing to like play on the side, but like I said, if you want to do other content in the game, Rogue is not gonna fulfill that for you. It has a very specific playstyle, and whatever spec you choose is gonna feel the same way. Whereas if you pick a Druid, Feral Druid plays very differently from Boomkin Druid. At least the way that the gameplay feels different. A rogue is just slightly changing things up a little bit in the different specs. So, to me personally, a rogue, I mean, it's better than Demon Hunter because it has probably the same utility as a Demon Hunter. Instead of just having a lot of mobility, they just have permastealth and all these like stuns and everything. So it is better than Demon Hunter. But in my opinion, a rogue is a high A tier. It is not better than these classes when it comes to utility, self-healing, and having fun in World PvP. Rogues are good at killing things, and again, if that's what you're looking for, it's up here. But if you're looking for something that has utility, that is fun, that will allow for you to just mock people as you're killing them, then, it's probably not going to be Rogue. Not to mention, I haven't really seen the hero talent changes because some of them have received more self-healing with hero talents. But it's my impression that Rogue is more of a avoid damage sort of thing. Like, they don't heal themselves that much. They do have healing spells, but it's not like a Druid, It's not like the Hunter rework. It's not like any of these classes up here. So It goes down here. Then we have casters. Now, mage is a super fun one because it has everything. Like, it literally has everything. It has stealth. It has a root by using the ice frost thing so you can root people. But that targeted root they have is like, what is it, like a 2-second duration? So is it enough to like make people actually hit the ground? In most cases, it's not. Whereas Druid and Hunter, they have a targeted root that lasts for a lot longer than the Mage one. Mage has a lot of fun utility. It's kind of like the Monk situation. They have Ice Wall they can put up to like literally win things in Battlegrounds or Arena. I've seen some people be very creative with it. I saw when Rookie, he was with his teammate in the opening area and they pretended to be AFK. And then, you know, the Demon Hunter and the healer on the other team, they kind of like, you know, went to them, and the Demon Hunter went in to that little gap they were in the opening area, and then they ice walled, and then the healer couldn't get to the Demon Hunter, so they just like nuked the Demon Hunter really fast. Like, it was super fun gameplay with ice wall there. They have knockbacks, they have so many different things they can do. It's just a very unique type of class. Personally, if you ask me, like I said, they don't have the best root. They don't have the best stealth. They have a really good knockback. They have some really fun utility. But there are certain things that I'm looking for, like self-healing. Like they have shields. They have, you know, like they have ice block, stuff like that. But it's kind of like a Hunter situation. Like, you need to know when to press your defensives correctly. They have Alter Time, which can be purged, by the way, by certain classes like Shaman. So they do have certain abilities that makes them super awesome. If you're really good at Mage, you're gonna be absolutely dominating people in open world and Battlegrounds. It's lacking some things, but it also has some other things that I think really like pulls up. It's like it's lacking things, but oh, it has other things. So we go up and down in where should it be inside this tier list here. If I had to like just kind of go with my guts based on what I know from Mage, because I have played Mage, it's super fun. I was even gonna main it in Shadowlands a couple of times. If I were to take Mage and place it somewhere, it's definitely higher than Monk. Like, you can't argue about that. Like, it's definitely higher than Monk. I think I would probably place it higher than Shaman. Again, it has a targeted route which Shaman doesn't have, but Shaman does so many other things better. It has static field totem, it has AoE route, it has self-healing. Like, I'm kind of struggling putting it somewhere here. I'm gonna go ahead and put it higher than Shaman because I know the potential, if you play Mage really well, it's probably gonna be up here with these guys, right? But this is also a beginner-friendly tier list. So if you want to pick up Mage and you're not a top-tier player that has played Mage for 10 years, you know, it's probably going to be down here. So that's something I want to take into account as well. They do have stealth. So, you know, while they do not have as good self-healing as Shaman, they do have stealth on a long cooldown, but they do have it. So there's a couple of things here that I think makes Mage just... it's somewhere here. The next one is going to be Priest. Now, Priest is also kind of a unique class because Priest has Mind Control, which is probably one of the most fun spammable spells in the entire game. On top of that, they do also have a couple of stuns. You know, they have a fear, they have a stun. So, like, Priest is one of those where if you have some sort of plan at some point that you want to be a healer, pick Priest. Discipline Priest, in my opinion, is the most fun healing spec in the entire game. Like, Discipline Priest is top S+ God tier when it comes to healing for the pure fun of it. I love the fact that you're dealing damage as part of your rotation. I love the fact that you're shielding and healing people passively as you're fighting. It's super fun. Is it the best healer? I don't know. But just like gameplay-wise, it is the most fun in the entire game when it comes to healing. But again, this is a DPS thing we're looking at in this tier list. Shadow Priest, it has the best self-healing in the game. It has mind control that is spammable, knocking people off ledges. There's just something satisfying in taking over somebody's body and seeing it from their point of view, what is happening, knocking them off, just running them off a cliff. It's so much fun. That being said, they don't have much other than that. Like, they don't have a knockback. I guess you could say mind control is better than a knockback, but they don't have a knockback. They don't have any sort of roots. I mean, they do, but it's the tentacle thing and nobody ever uses it. They have some things. I've tested the root thing, by the way, to see if you can go into the air and root people with the tentacles, but you cannot. So they have some really unique stuff there. They have a lot of self-healing. Like, if you want to not die in World PvP, like, it's not a paladin you need to look at. It's a priest. Like, they can just stay alive. It's like priest is lacking like half of my list here of requirements for like making them like S+ tier. But they also like do the things they have. They do them so well that like you're not gonna put them down here for not having that stuff. Like, if you take priest, it's obviously better than paladin for World PvP and Battlegrounds. It's obviously going to be better than these two, in my opinion, for solo PvP. Like, they're obviously better than those. So we're up here somewhere. And I personally think that mind control is such a fun utility. Like, it's so much fun and it's so iconic. Monk, the Ox Kick, it's probably been in the game before and they removed it and now they put it back again. So Ox Kick is probably something that, I don't know, like, it could be taken away, but mind control, that's like part of being a priest. Like, if you take that away, it's like taking bubble away from paladin. Like, you just don't ever do that. So I'm gonna go with my feeling here, my gut feeling, like what feels more fun in World PvP from my experience playing all these different classes. I think priest is gonna go either here or it's gonna go above mage. Like, this is where we're at. I'm gonna put it in the middle here. It's simply because it's lacking a lot of the things the mage has. Like, it doesn't have stuff like Ice Wall, it doesn't have knockbacks. I think mage is a lot more fun for that. But priest is super fun with like the few utility it has, it does perfectly. And it goes around here, in my opinion. So we have Warlock left. Warlock, in my opinion, is alongside these losers down here at the bottom. Warlock, it has a lot of stuns, it has spammable fears. It's like Warlock is very hard to kill at the beginning, and then when you get past the defensives, they're not that hard to kill. They're actually pretty easy to kill. You just need to know how to get around the first initial defensives they have. They don't have any sort of knockbacks. They don't have stuff like any sort of unique utility like mind control. Is Warlock a fun PvE class? Yes, it's talking PvE, it goes like up here, right? Again, we're not talking about killing things here, because if you're just worried about killing things, Warlock probably goes pretty high up here as well in solo PvP. But I'm talking fun utility. Like, what is going to make you go into solo PvP and you just have so much fun? Warlock is not that. It's simply like rogue, it's for killing things. I would actually argue that Warlock probably goes like maybe here. Like, I'm probably not going to put it down there. But it's like rogue, like it is fun. It has spammable crowd control. It has a lot of things you can do. The only reason I'm putting it up here is because it's so powerful and it's always powerful. It can always kill things in World PvP. It's an awesome fantasy. You have demons, you have stuff like that. If the fantasy was different and they were just the same as everyone else when it came to killing things just as fastly, I'd probably go down here. But because it is like it is right now, I'm going to put it up here. Again, numbers can change, and I know that some of these classes are kind of placed based on like meta, like Demon Hunter, for example. But it's one of those things that are just stable. Like, they just don't ever change, really. Warlock is super powerful. They do have a lot of... Okay, Warlock has a lot of spammable utility for solo PvP that is super awesome, but they're not fun utility. You don't knock people off ledges and kill them with fall damage. You don't have stealth. Like, they don't have that kind of stuff. But they do have spammable utility for solo PvP, which makes them really good in solo PvP. Same thing as Demon Hunter. They have so many self-healing things now. Like, the leech is just out of this world. They are super good mobility. But do they have that utility that makes them fun? No, they do not. So Warlock definitely goes together with Demon Hunter. I would probably say like right below Demon Hunter. So if you plan on playing solo PvP, whether that being in Battlegrounds, whether that being World PvP, you don't want to rely on a healer, you just kind of want to do things yourself, this is my tier list for that. Like, this is the top choices for that. I have been playing, and again, this is probably because I've always had this in the back of my head. I currently play Hunter because, again, Hunter is getting reworked, so I'm going to be playing Hunter as my main thing going into the War Within. I also have my Druid with me. You can actually see if I just take things away here. Inside my list here, I have my Hunter, I have my Evoker, and I have my Druid. Like, those are my 3 things that I'm going to be bringing with me into the War Within. I'm not set on any other 4th class at the moment. Like, I have, you know, like other things down here that I've been playing. I also have level 70 characters on another realm. This is my tier list for if you plan on having fun in solo PvP. And I'm talking about having all the fun utility, talking about having self-healing, talking about being able to manipulate people in the open world. Because really, like, crowd control is the king when it comes to having fun in open world. At least I think. So yeah, what do you guys think? This is my personal tier list, by the way. It's not, this is what, you know, completely objective tier list is if you want to play something. This is based on my personal experiences playing these different classes and playing against certain classes. So, this is what I would go for if you're planning. Like, any of these choices inside S tier is just going to be like, you're going to have hella fun. But if you just are not into these 2 classes, if you just don't like Hunter or Druid, they're just not it for you, then these classes inside S tier are going to be perfectly viable as well when it comes to having pure fun. A tier is more like if you want to kill things really fast. If you don't really care about utility, but you just want to kill things really fast, A tier is the way to go, right? Because they are super good at killing things. Like, if you just don't care about self-healing, you don't care about utility, A tier is the way to go. Because they, if you were talking from a pure killing things point of view, it would probably be like up here. Oh, not this one. There we go. Like, this is probably how it was going to be. But again, I have other considerations that I have on my personal tier list here. And then we have the losers down here. Again, if you like to have a sword, because it's something that you like, you want to have sword transmogs on you, right? Like, because that's how I am. That's why I have Evoker up here. Not up here, but up here on my character list on the side. Yeah, so again, solo PvP, if you're playing instance PvP like Arena, the tier list is not going to look like this, by the way. You're not going to have Paladin down here at the bottom. You're not going to have Death Knight or Warrior down here. Like, they're probably going to be much higher up in the tier list. But for solo PvP, self-healing, utility, movement ability, stealth, those kinds of things, they all count when it comes to solo PvP. So this is my tier list. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.